Welcome to the fourth video in the series devoted to using social media as an academic. In this video, I'm going to discuss the different reasons that people not using social media are going to give you so you don't use social media either. And I'm going to provide you with arguments to debunk those reasons. Among the different reasons for not using social media in academia, we have the following ones. First, that social media is a fad. Second, that using social media could be childish for students and demeaning for your work. That if you could be able to use social media in some kind of appropriate way, you couldn't have the time. And even if you have the time, you couldn't have actual interesting contents related to your academic job to post, to publish in social media. So let's see the first one. Social media is a fad. The idea here is that social media is fashionable, but it's not going to last. The thing is that it's not the first time that social media, internet, and the web has been supposedly um, uh, being a fad. For instance, this is an article from 8 years ago in which they were discussing how Twitter was not anymore what made Twitter a nice and interesting platform. Uh, 30 years ago, they were discussing that the internet was a fad. Okay, why are you devoting time to the web, to the cyberspace, when you can go to a real library with real books? Okay, and 22 years ago, this is a news article from the 2000s. Internet was a fad because millions of people were simply quitting the internet, according to this newspaper. We will discuss that later, but the thing is that no, social media is not a fad, the web is not a fad, internet is not a fad. You're watching this on the internet, okay? You probably uh, get note about this video on some social media platforms, so they are not a fad. Using social media would be childish for the students and demeaning for my work. You may say, not everybody thinks this way. Well, the chances are that you're going to find people thinking like that, because 40% of researchers think that having an online presence is not important. So imagine what they think about you using Twitter or making TikTok videos. Indeed, we have this interview from last month. They were interviewing David Bromwich from Yale University, and he was asked about scholars using social media, and he said that some of them were very famous, they were celebrities. Uh, uh, Sometimes they were demagoguing, according to himself. And the thing is that he said that using social media, using Twitter, is against being a scholar, and in the long run, he says, not me, is going to reduce the prestige of professors. Looking professors make like everybody else. So the thing is that you are going to find this kind of people, and I have some arguments for that. The thing is that, well, this is a movie, Sharknado, okay? And maybe it's not the greatest movie, the greatest film in history, but the existence of Sharknado is not the meaning for cinema as a medium. Okay, so cinema has provided Citizen Kane. So the thing is that social media, like the name itself is telling you, is a medium. So it's childish or demeaning depending on what you do with that medium. Okay, so you can choose to provide Charnado that obviously has a public, or you can provide Citizen Kane or something in between, or maybe some days you are Sharknado, some days you are Orson Welles. Okay, the thing is that by simply using social media, you are not actually immediately less of a scholar. Okay, so that said, the next reason is you don't have time. And even if you are able to find the time, you're not going to have the contents for social media. Okay, the thing is that uh, for that, you don't need reasons. What you need are tools. And this is what this seminar is trying to give you. In order to you understand that you can be able to find the time for social media, and you are able to find the contents for social media, and that those contents are going to be meaningful, are going to be interesting for the audience, are going to be useful for you in your career, you need tools. Okay, so the purpose of this seminar is not pushing you to jump from a bridge. Okay, that may be fun, but maybe it's not really wise. So this seminar and these recommendations and advices are actually to do this, which is maybe a bit scarier than just jumping from a bridge, but it's going to be much more safe, and it's going to be much more meaningful, and you are going to be able to repeat that in a consistent manner. Okay, so this seminar is to provide you tools so you know that you have the time and you have the contents for social media. Now, regarding the other two, of course that social media is not a fad. I'm not saying that platforms are not going to disappear. That's why you need to be more than one. You need to be able to move content from one platform to another. For instance, like I said, I've moved all of my slide decks from SlideShare to other place, to Google Slides actually. And you need a website, something that it's yours, okay? But the thing is that the features of social media, that is something to create an online identity, to interact with others, to weave a collaboration network, to post content, to share content, and consume content is not going to disappear. I don't know if it's going to be Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or other platform, but they are going to be there. Your students are going to use it. Other colleagues are going to use it. Conferences and journals and institutions are going to use it. So you need to learn how to use social media. And you need to be able to use it in a way that it's meaningful, that it's not childish, that it's not demeaning, and above all, that it's not draining your time. So the thing is that you have the time and you have the content. So my piece of advice, I am a person who's very, very bad at handling and managing his time. So my approach is reusing, recycling what I'm already producing for social media. So there are plenty of things that you are already doing in your day-to-day basis that you can push to social media. For instance, these slides were prepared, as I said in the introduction, for a training course in my university. Of course, the slides were not in Spanish. I translated the slides to English, but that was good for me because I teach courses in English, and it's a really great practice for me to practice my writing and practice my talking, delivering lectures in English. So that's a benefit for me. The thing is that the slides were to be consumed by what, 15 people? If I just deliver the slides to those attending the course, and by delivering the slides on social media, maybe they can reach more people, or maybe nobody, but I don't care because I can go to those slides later. You may say, well, but why are you recording these videos? In my case, I tend to rehearse lectures and seminars, okay? Maybe not the day-to-day classes for my courses, but important workshops, conferences, talks, and so on, I rehearse. So the thing is, why cannot simply record my rehearsal and use that video with minimal editing for YouTube? Okay? So the thing is that you are doing plenty of things. You don't need to do like I do, but you are doing plenty of things. You're reading. So if you're reading, you can post your thoughts about your reads, maybe on a blog, maybe on Twitter, maybe in other place. Those reflections about your readings can be useful for you because those reflections can be used in future papers, in future chapters, and you already have some pieces there. And even if you're not going to use them, you can go later to your thoughts and very quickly remember why that book, that paper, that thing that you have read was important for you and how it integrates with other readings. You're preparing slide decks and posters for courses, for talks, for plenty of things. So why just delivering those slides, those graphic materials to those attending your course or your talk when you can share them on the internet with everybody else? And maybe sooner or later you are going to save the day by using something that you have put online because maybe you have missed your laptop or the pen drive or something is not working and you need to use that slide deck that is there on the internet. Delivering video lectures. I was not a fan of recording myself. Okay, when you record yourself, you notice how you repeat some words, you notice that you have a really thick accent, you notice weird manners that you have when moving your hands or maybe your eyes, things like that. But the thing is that from 2020, we had to deliver video lectures. So the thing is that we were streaming ourselves to the rooms of our students. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm streaming myself, why not recording these lectures so they can watch them later? I can watch them later. Maybe I can use some of those materials later. Okay, so from 2020, I started recording most of my classes, even though I was not actually streaming to anybody because I was delivering face-to-face courses this year. So that's my advice. Record your video lectures. You're going to take part in events. You're going to attend conferences and workshops. You're going to be in panels. Why not tweet about that? Why not write a post in your blog after that? By doing that, you have a fresh memory for posterity that you can reuse. And maybe if you're in a social media platform saying, okay, I'm here in this workshop, is anybody else that I know from Twitter? And you may meet someone that you only know from social media and you can start a new kind of relationship. You're publishing. At least you're doing that. Okay? So the thing is that why keep that paper in the journal or in the proceedings of the website? Tweet about that. Write a thread about that publication. Try to reach a different audience. Make that paper shine and be noticed by others. Okay? With publication, of course, I'm not talking just about papers. I'm talking about code. I'm talking about tools. I'm talking about data sets. Okay? Mentoring and giving advice. You're doing that daily. Why that piece of advice that you're delivering basically every single year, why not put it on writing or recording a short video about that? So other people outside your institution, outside your circle of students is able to use that advice. Okay? And even for your own students, if you have a blog post about something that you have already told other student, just point to that link. And if that the student need more clarification, need more questions, you can update that blog post or you can decide what you're going to do. Receiving questions. Sometimes you're going to receive a question. Sometimes you're reading an interesting question in social media. Sometimes for a member of the public, from a colleague or a journalist, and you may say, I could provide an answer to that question. It's my area of expertise. So provide an answer, write a blog post, record a video, write a thread. Okay? Being, you exist. You're a human being with hobbies, with opinions, watching movies, following series, reading books, novels, having dreams. You can not talk about this on social media. That's perfectly fine. Maybe it's even unwise for our early career academic, but being a comprehensive self online can be useful, as we will see when discussing involving students. So, if you have an opinion, if you have watched a movie and you want to talk about that, that's it. If you want. If you don't want, don't do it. Is this going to take time? Of course. But as I said, if you somehow incorporate that into your workflow, it's going to be much less than you think. For instance, as I said, I repeat, my course, the training course I was providing, of course, was delivered in Spanish, and the slides were in Spanish. So yes, it took me time to translate everything into English, but it was good for me, it was good practice for me, because I need English on my daily basis. And recording these videos is no taking virtually time, because I was going to rehearse. So less than you thought. Some examples from my practice. I told you I'm going to use examples from my practice. So these are a blog post and a tweet about my thoughts, my reflections on some readings. Here you have plenty of slides. These are on my website. I've been able to collect and don't lose any of the slide decks I prepared all of my career. In this public website, I post the slides for public talks. Okay, the slides for my courses are in the platform my university use, and I share that with students from my institution. But I only publicly post things that I think that they can be of much broader interest. Videos. Again, I told you I was not a fan of being recorded, okay? But after 2 years of pandemic, you get used to look at that camera. You get used to talk to a wall and not knowing if there is someone on the other side that is paying attention to you or not. So in the end, I think that it makes plenty of sense, and it provides plenty of interesting additional content to simply provide in slides. I don't regret about recording videos. I regret about not having all of my talks being recorded in the past. Taking part in events. In this case, this was a PhD dissertation defense. It was part of the panel, and well, I took a picture and I mentioned the student, and it was a nice way to say, well, here I am doing academic things. Publications. If you have publications, put a nice picture if it's a book, put the links to the papers, to the data sets, mention your co-authors if they are on Twitter, try to simply get some noise, to produce some noise about that publication. Advice. This is a blog post about preprints. This is a really good example for the following reason. This was an email I received 6 years ago about being advisable or not to publish preprints. And I wrote an email. And after writing the email, I thought, well, this is very sensible advice. Why not just put it on the blog? And I use it again every single time someone asks me about preprints. I send the link, so I spare some time with that, and you're going to see that I'm linking that post from these slides. So writing in a persistent platform your thoughts, it's going to be useful for you in the long term. Expert opinion. As I said, sometimes you read interesting questions. In this case, it was a question from a journalist in Spain about which parties, which ideologies were more prone to use political bots and hoaxes. And I thought, that's my area of expertise. I can talk about that. It's an interesting question. It's not an easy one. And the answer is convoluted. So I will write a thread, and I wrote a really long thread, and I transformed that thread later in a blog post. Okay, and finally, as I said before, I'm a kind of a comprehensive self, maybe not discussing my family, not discussing my friends' issues, my political opinions, but from time to time I consider that, well, I want to say something about this. And very recently, Messiers, the illustrator of a really famous comic, at least in Europe, Valerian and Laurelin, died. And it was sad because it was a great artist, and I had enjoyed very much those comics in my childhood. So I thought, well, I want to pay my respects to that artist, and I want to share with people one of the pages of his art that I enjoy the most. Okay? So, with those examples, you have seen some of the tools I'm using. I use Twitter a lot, and I'm going to tell you that Twitter is really good. Of course, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But it's really useful. The blog. I have a blog. I'm not going to delete it. But it's true that I'm not blogging a lot. That's important for you to know, that you are not slaves of your tools. You don't need to do what your tools are supposed to demand from you. Our tools, you use them. So, I seldom use my blog. Yes, but that's not wrong. Okay, we will discuss blogs later. The personal website, that's crucial. Okay, crucial. Believe me, you need a website. Of course, the website has to be updated. You need to link your website to the other platforms. You need to link from the other platforms to your website. You need to provide open access publications. I will discuss later. And it has to be updated. Believe me, as soon as this video is public in YouTube, there's going to be an update on my website. I use YouTube, I told you, not much, but from time to time, for special occasions. SlideShare. I'm going to mention SlideShare again and later, because slides are quite an important part of our job. Maybe death by PowerPoint sorry, is a problem, but the thing is that we are preparing slides constantly. So you need to find a way to share slides with people that it's not that it's convenient for you and convenient for your readers. I quit SlideShare because I don't like forcing people to subscribe to a platform in order to read my content. It's my content. So I migrated everything to Google Slides. These slides have been created with Google Slides, and I use a lot Reveal. You have a link there. It's a JavaScript framework to create slides. I have also profiles on Google Scholar, ORCID, Scopus, Publons, And I have a profile in a site, but I don't use it a lot. I don't really get the point of a site at this moment. I have not deleted my profiles on LinkedIn, Facebook, Academia.edu, and ResearchGate, but they are abandoned. So the thing is that there are plenty of platforms, they are quite different among them, and you need to know what kind of services are out there and which kind of platforms are the most useful for you. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to discuss all of that.